trying to get an idea of what's going through your head. And you're thinking about, wow, this is a neat space, and I think I'll invest in this. What was going through your mind at that point? I mean, that's a pretty big commitment to make.
Especially as a 25-year-old. Yeah, in hindsight, it was. And I had actually been looking for years at that point for a building or a house or something where I could build a community of students. That's been my passion for 18 years I've been teaching now, is working with students who are interested in production and technology, and they have these great musical and artistic ideas in their heads. They're trying to figure out how to get them out and make a career on it and build that. So I started teaching before I came to MTSU, but coming here in 2003 and teaching at MTSU, I built just this collection community of students who, many of whom I still work with to this day, decade plus later. And so I looked for a long time for a place that we could all create together. And so when I found this place, there were already people in here doing different events, and former MCSU students that had like the studio in the back. And so there was a whole lot more detail in terms of how the opportunity came around. But when it finally became the place that I could buy and we could invest time and energy into, and then I already had this core team of students, that Omega Delta Psi, that's still a fraternity on MTSU's campus, and actually they just had their 15-year anniversary party here a couple of months ago. And so they came in here and we just started executing shows, and then that had turned into weddings, and then that turned into corporate events. And so up until about 4 years ago, that's what it did, just for years, was all kinds of different events. And depending on who was managing it in different eras, it was more focused on concerts. Other times it was more focused on weddings and corporate. So then about 2 years ago, I met David, who owns the building next door. And he's a visionary sort of person. He's always looking to create something that brings delight to people. And that's, is kind of our motto is, can we make them cry? Because if you can, then you've created an experience that is unexpected delight, and everybody needs more of that. So when he and I connected on this and became partners in this building, as we started to meet our neighbors, we landed across the street and ran into Ricky Martini in Concert Productions, who, having just come off the road for decades with Lyle Lovett, had a similar vision for creating a great space to execute events that brought delight to people. So Ricky, with his long experience in concert production and execution, is focusing his energies on making more of the music happen. David, with his business background, is focused more on the weddings and the events and the business stuff. So my role has been to help bring in some of the technology and the aspects to create a unique experience that isn't available anywhere else in Murfreesboro, or really even in the Nashville area, that allows people to have a destination event without ever leaving the square.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because this is a venue, but it's a smaller venue. Mm-hmm. It's not a T-Pack or a Bridgestone or some big thing like that. But
sure.
But it has its, I guess, target or what you're trying to achieve. So what's the difference between those, and what is it that you do for people that's unique?
Yeah, working in the music industry, and working with students especially, everybody wants to be able to create an amazing experience. If they want to have their wedding, if they want to have a tea party, if they want to put on a show, they want it to be an amazing experience for all the people involved. And so in trying to set up this environment to be versatile, to serve the community that we're in, we're not a T-Pack. We're not just going to be bringing in, shows that, that are necessarily massive. But we can still create, thanks to technology and smart people and dedicated space and a great location right here on the square, we can help somebody create a mind-blowing experience so that they remember that for the rest of their lives. So if that's their wedding, we want to make it a really special wedding by creating environments and backgrounds and projection that they're not going to be able to get just by watching a wedding highlight reel on a TV, but it's something that they and all their guests get to experience in an immersive environment. So that's for us the difference.
In addition to weddings, like, let's talk about concert venues,
sure,
small concerts and that, or whatever events
mm-hmm.
you do. What are some examples of the ones you've done in the past? What are examples of the things you're seeking to do that would give people an understanding of, oh, that's what I can find there?
Yeah, absolutely. And Ricky and David can speak more to this, in as they've been involved with a lot more events. But one of the backgrounds that we had cycling up here was this United We Style, which had a combination of live performances, poetry. I think they had actual like people up here styling, hair and fundraising, for, I'm blanking on the cause because I was out of town.
United Way.
Yeah, for the United Way. So, other events, my gosh, yeah, we've had a lot of just corporate events or people that have had anniversaries, retirement celebrations, et cetera, as well. Christmas parties. Yeah, I know you saw some of them, Halloween parties, so in terms of things that we're trying to do, I think what we enjoy doing is bringing some magic to whatever their idea was. So when people come in, they say, oh, okay, wow, that's a lot of things you can do. Boy, what would make my day feel special is X. So for example, some of the Halloween things. Somebody wants something as simple as a Halloween party. They could go anywhere to have a Halloween party, and they could hang up some spooky, decorations and maybe call it a day. But when they come here, their guests get an immersive experience and an environment that we like to create. So for us, that's probably the bigger part of it.
Is there a market here in this facility for regular concerts?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And the reality is a lot of people in this town go to Nashville on the regular to see concerts. And as just Murfreesboro and Middle Tennessee has expanded in general, we know that those people travel to Nashville specifically to see it. We've talked to a lot of people that love music and they'd like to go see it, but there just hasn't been something around here for them to be able to see it. So right now we're exploring what that community looks like and whether they're the kind that actually are going to want to go to concerts and whether they come right downtown. The things we're seeing here in terms of growth downtown and future directions, I think so. Yeah, I really do.
What kind of entertainers do you think would be interested in serving this market?
That's a great question, and that's going to be something I'm going to hand off to Ricky and David because they're more focused on the musical side.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had to communicate to the public, people like me who really didn't know this even existed here,
yeah,
what is it you want to say about that you're here and what you're hoping to highlight and become more visible so that people can say, oh yeah, on Friday or Saturday night I can run by the Walnut House?
Yeah, absolutely. If there was something that I was trying to say, gosh, I should try to be a little more prepared with a one-liner.
We're editing this. So
of course, yeah. One of the main things that we were talking about, David and I, is we talked about this, and Ricky's always been a part of that, is only great experiences, only amazing experiences. We're trying to make, if somebody chooses to have an event here, that they always walk away just kind of having their mind blown. From the first meeting where they get to envision and they're not constrained by a bunch of, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. And we've tried to make it to where the space and the environment and the backgrounds and the execution is going to be flexible and enjoyable. And and it's going to go beyond what they could have expected their event to go.
Are you saying that this facility is maybe more conducive to events and event planning than it is to regular concerts?
I don't think the facility is. Whether the community is, that we're finding out. The facility has, well, if you look on the website, you'll see that this room looks like a million different things, depending on the day and depending on what's happening. Concerts, it's the best sounding room in town. The floor has been acoustically floated for acoustic purposes so that it's got an even balanced sound. All of these things that we're using for projection, like giant windows, are bass traps that make the room acoustically balanced. It's a state-of-the-art sound system. We've got high-end lighting and everything. So for concerts, the concerts I've seen in here are at a level for 200 to 300 people. There's something like you can't get unless you go to Nashville. So this is creating that environment where that actually is possible. Professional production values at a small town budget.
So you have the capacity to do it from a physical standpoint. It's
No
a
question.
matter of whether the artist and the marketers of the artist feel like they can market this.
Make
and
a
sell
draw.
tickets.
For sure.
And what would that entail, do you think, or is that something for someone else?
Definitely something for those guys, yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to talk about right now that's important for us to understand at this point?
Sure, that's a great question. David, anything that I'm...
Like something you offer that's unique here that maybe people don't, like an amenity or something that like you have those extra rooms. Talk
Right.
about some of the rooms that you have and what you're trying to do with
Sure.
with
Okay.
weddings and things.
So one of the things that entranced me about this building when I first came in was everybody's first comment is, oh my gosh, I had no idea how big this was. So we've got a variety of spaces. It didn't just have one music venue, or one music venue space. We have a larger one that can accommodate up to 300 people standing or several hundred sitting. We've got a smaller space downstairs that's more appropriate for smaller events. Or a lot of times we'll have events and have historically had something where they'll have one part of the event in the downstairs and move the other part to the upstairs at the end. So a wedding downstairs and the reception up here. So that's one of the things that's unique about this facility that it's difficult to find other places where you might have to just cram it all into one spot. In addition, we've got a lot of high-end, beautiful spaces that are usable for weddings, for receptions, as green rooms, for corporate breakout spaces. And those spaces are places where it's easy for anyone to feel comfortable, whether they're a lawyer needing to have a half-day retreat or whether it's somebody looking to, to have a concert and they need space for their artists. So that sort of flexibility, along with kitchen prep and everything, and a built-in recording studio, opens up a lot of opportunities for people to create content, to record and produce, like we've had with WMOT here as they produced their live shows last year. So the opportunities to expand from a technical perspective or create content are more vast here than they would be at any other event facility in town.
I would assume that recording studios vary a little bit depending on size and technology.
Sure.
What can this recording studio do for people?
It's a full multi-track studio, and staffed by somebody with decades of experience and expertise working with professional artists. So he's able to produce top quality sound from any sort of acoustic musicians, that are interested in capturing their sound.
And who does that here?
That's Ricky Martini, and he's got other engineers that work with him in that studio.
And who has actually recorded here that maybe some people might be familiar with,
Oh my
whether
gosh.
local or regional or
I would have to go back in the list. We were on episode 1 of The Voice. When we had artists performing here, I'd literally have to go back in the lists. There's a ton of them.
Sure. We can get into that.
Okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I think we got what we need
Great.
from you, Nathan. Then we'll just step these guys